Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Suit Show. If you have been following us on our series this month, I want to say thank you, and I want to ask, how has it been for you throughout the month of February? At least this is the first time we're doing it, and hopefully first of many, because the aim isn't just to speak one time on the subject of love, but a continuous reiteration on what love is, what love should be, and cutting through the noise and sifting through the chaff of what media and society portrays as love today. All right, so we've talked about the person of love, we've talked about the dilemma of love, we've talked about love in a loveless world. Now, all of these things are a thought, and everything is culminating into this final episode in this series, and we're titling it "The Optics of Love." If you Okay, before I continue my thoughts, please make sure to follow, share this episode for someone you think who would absolutely love this. Take your time, go through the entire series. If this is your first time listening to it, go through the entire series. I promise you, it's a banger. It's really good. It's really good. I promise you that. All right. So back to my thoughts. If we ever did anything remotely close to science, there was there was a topic in physics called optics. Yeah, and we had to observe the reflection and refraction of light through multiple objects. There was a rectangular prism, there was a triangular, I want to say prism, but more like a pyramid. There was a sphere, there was a mirror, there were mirrors, and either reflecting or refracting, we were meant to measure some we're meant to take some things down basically for our calculation. I really did not pay attention in that class. I really did not pay attention in that class, so I cannot give you sufficient information of what was happening. All I knew was how to get the equations right and how to calculate and get my answers. So yeah, I really did not pay attention. But one thing I can tell you for free that happened in that class was we had to be observant. Sure, in physics and in sciences, there's something called a margin of error, where you set a margin plus or minus 0.5, meaning if the answer is 21, it is permitted to go to 21.5 or go down to 20.5. So the range is 20.5 to 21.5, and that is the margin of error. Basically, it says this is how high it can go and this is how low it can go. If your answer comes out to be 24.49, of course you can round up and just say, oh yes, 21, it's 21, or 20.5, that type of thing. But anyway, physics is not the topic of my discussion today. Today we're talking strictly on the optics of love, and I use optics to mean, what does love look like to us? When we think of love, when we hear love, what does it look like? I explained in the first episode that love is a person. Love is not just a feeling, love is a personality. And some people will say, cool, I agree with you. Some people say, I don't agree with that view. And then I explain the complexity of love in the next episode, the dilemma of love. How love is not just a bunch of chemical reactions. It's not just you having an intestinal sensation that we have so beautifully dubbed as having butterflies in your stomach. Some people will agree and some people will still disagree. Then I went on to say that okay, if you don't agree with me that love is complex, let me show you how love is being portrayed in a world that is largely loveless. Some people will agree, and again, some people will disagree. Now, it all comes down to one thing: we all see and perceive love differently. Fine, there are commonalities, there are similarities to which we perceive love, to which we receive love, to which we show love. But like I told a friend a couple days ago, we are humans. At the end of the day, we are just a collection and a composition of cells. Strip away race, ethnicity, tribal difference, language, strip away all those things, social ideologies, religious affiliations, strip away every single thing. And fundamentally, we're just a bunch of cells. We're just human beings. You know, sure, our social ideologies, our religious sects, our religious affiliations, race, gender, basically phenotypical, ethnographical differences contributes to how we perceive love. But on a fundamental level, how do we perceive love? And so I made it my I made it a point of call. I made it my duty to write down four categories of people and how they perceive love. And the questions I asked myself were, how does a newborn perceive love? Second question is, how does a growing child perceive love? And then, how do adolescents perceive love? And how do adults perceive love? Now I'll go to the newborns. To a newborn, love is primarily through sensory perception, touch, sound, smell, and sight, rather than abstract emotions. To them, love isn't just an emotion, it's a physical experience that makes them feel safe, warm, and cared for. This is interesting because it points to something greater than whatever definition of love there is in the world today. When we were born, we didn't care about I love yous and emotional, displays. We didn't care about all those things. When we came out of our mother's womb, we didn't care about all those things. What we really cared about was being nurtured by our mom, being nurtured by the milk from her bosoms. The sensory cues, it says sight, smell, sound. Because they are babies, sight is not necessarily advanced to be able to recognize faces as much and as intelligently as possible. But the movement of the eyes of someone who holds them, it's a funny thing. Think about it. When a baby is with their mom or their dad, they look at their dad, they are all giggly, and they turn their face and look at you. At least some babies, not all, some babies do this. They turn their face to look at you, and the smile disappears. And when they look back at their mom or their dad, there's all smiles again. And you're wondering, why is this baby not smiling? I have a beautiful face. The baby doesn't really care if you have a beautiful face. At that time, the baby doesn't know you, so he or she hasn't registered you in their mind. So their emotions or whatever you see on their face, the display on their face of maybe resentment or indifference, tallies with what they are perceiving in their brain. So more or less, in a way, love is logical to newborns. Now, how did we go from seeing love as something of safety, something of warmth, something of care, to reducing it to just a feeling? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Of course it doesn't. Now, to a growing child, one who is teething, sensory perception and intelligence is a little bit higher, love becomes a combination of actions, words, and consistency that shape their sense of security, self-worth, and relationships with others. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the importance of this episode is we are going to be the next generation of parents. That's if you're not already a parent listening to me. If you're a parent listening to me, I mean, I'm super proud of you. I mean, having children is a responsibility that nobody should ever take lightly, a responsibility that nobody should go in ill prepared, a responsibility that a lot of people are fascinated by, but will be absolutely scared, frustrated, and frightened when they actually get the responsibility. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying this as an experienced parent or someone who has experience in parenting. I'm saying this as someone who had younger siblings. I would hear my siblings cry, belt, belting soprano at 3 a.m., 3, 4 a.m. That is the time that these babies pick and say, oh, this is the perfect time to cry, you know. And so when they go from always wanting to be around you, feel your touch, feel your embrace and everything, and now their definition of self-worth is reliant on what you do. Now this is how they perceive love. Is the reason why statistically people who grow up in broken homes have difficulties in giving or receiving love. They can make callous choices when it comes to their love life, and you're wondering, how does this happen? Love is just a feeling now. Like, everybody should be able to love. Sure, everybody is born with, I would say everybody is born with the ability to give and receive love, but they go from a point where they can't perceive anything to a point where they can perceive everything. Now they are malleable. They need to be formed. They need to be nurtured, taken care of. To the growing child, love is something they see, hear, feel, and experience daily. There's a reason why when they see their mom and dad saying, "Oh, I love you," and everything, even though it's so mushy and cringe, and they're like, "Ew, mom," and they close their eyes and everything, it's registering something in their subconscious mind. It's registering something at the back of their mind that, oh, dad and mom really love themselves. And it's the reason why children, they are hit the worst by divorce. Not the mom or the dad, not the adults who decide without the children's involvement, without the children's consent, that a divorce is the best way to go, is the best course of action. Children are the ones hit the worst by divorce. Yeah, so it's something to think about. For them, love is in the little moments: bedtime stories, a hug after a bad day, a parent cheering them on, or simply knowing that someone cares. This cheering on reminds me of a video I watched a couple months ago. The I think it was one of the parents, either the mom or dad, I do not know which one. Their face wasn't in the video, and they had the camera pointed at the stage, and this boy ran on stage with his yellow t-shirt. When he ran onto the stage to do his group performance, he was just looking with his eyes. His eyes were darting back and forth, scanning through the whole crowd, looking for his mom or his dad. I think one of his parents or both parents was just scanning through. Immediately he laid his eyes on one of them. His face lit up. He had such a beaming smile. Me watching it, I was like, oh my goodness, this boy looks so beautiful. Such a beautiful child. He was so happy, And if you grew up in an African household where maybe you came back, you didn't feel all good, and then they say, why is your face like that? Come on, smile. If you don't smile, I'll beat you. Drop your bag. Go and do this. Go and do that. For us, we'll say it toughened us up. I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's go into adolescence, man. So for adolescents, This is the bridge between adulthood. Is the bridge between being a child and being an adult. So love is a lot more complex. It is evolving. It's a complex and evolving experience. It looks different depending on the relationships. Now they can differentiate what love means to them depending on relationships, family, friendships, self-love, and romantic connections. And this is particularly interesting because while we were growing up, if you walked up to your mom, like I remember when we were watching something on TV, and one of the young people, one of the young actors as I then said, oh, they had a crush on someone. My mom turned to us swiftly and said, you're not to ever have a crush on anybody. I was like, okay. It's not like we were actively discussing I have a crush on someone. I have a we were, it was just for entertainment, but okay, we've got it. And I feel like it's an African parent thing to not have that discussion early, to not want to have that discussion early, saying, why am I talking to my children about romance when they are 13? I heard a wise man once powerfully put it as, if you are not in the mix, they are going to bake the cake without you. So you need to know what your kids are up to, because let me tell you, the generation coming after, they are going to be a lot crazier than Gen Z or whatever generation came before them, than their predecessors. Because there's such a saturation of information. Information is out there in the open readily. You can't stifle the next generation. You can't stifle their access to information. It's not like before where it was you had to have access to a library or have a dedicated computer. You had to walk miles or walk down the block to gain access to some form of information. Information was so guarded, it was so heavily. It's not going to be like that. So we've got to be on the lookout. Yeah, don't shut them down. If you're open, and it's something that I have to learn, and we all have to learn as we are becoming the next generation of parents. We need to create an environment where our sons, our daughters are comfortable to come talk to us and say, Dad, I like a boy, or Mom, I like a girl, or Dad, I like a girl, Mom, I like a boy. Whichever, they should be able to come tell us. And we should not say, come on, stop that. When I was your age, I was focusing on my book. Okay, they are going to do it without, they are going to do it behind you. And you're not going to be sad about it. When the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. It's a powerful Bible verse, but I feel like we often overlook the overarching theme. When God says, when it says in the Bible, train up a child in the way he should go, it's not just talking about laying down Christian and godly precepts and being so, but it's all encompassing. Be involved in all aspects of their life. Don't just teach them to love the Lord when you are seeing them. Teach them to love the Lord even when you are thousands of miles away from them. That is the only way that they will not depart from what you've taught them. Give them the ability to think, to reason, to make informed decisions. And the only way they can do that is if you create an atmosphere for that. Yeah. And that would make them, when they become adults, our feelings, it improves. It comes, they develop a higher sense of reasoning. They develop a higher sense of understanding that love is about commitment, it's about effort, it's about choices in various aspects of life, in their romantic relationships, which hopefully leads to marriage, in friendships, family bonds, self-love. Love is not, it's not about fairy tales. It's not about Cinderella. It's not about Beauty and the Beast, the Sleeping Beauty. It's not all about that anymore. It's about real everyday choices. You have to make a conscious effort. We need to educate now. You can't say that they are too young, they cannot understand. Kids these days understand more than we let on, more than we even know. You might tell a kid, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to tell you, you don't understand, and they go to school and they pick it up. And kids are one of the most honest people, and they could just be working and just blurt it out. innocuously, and you're like, why did you say that thing? Don't ever I'm like, okay, but my friends say it. I say, whatever I see your friends doing, don't do. That's cool. That's a very cool thing to let them know. Don't be readily influenced. At the same time, if they don't see something to emulate, they will want to emulate anything. Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is the way we view love plays a huge role in everything that we do. So no matter what anybody tells you about love, no matter what I tell you about love, you would have a predisposition, you have an idea that is almost set in stone on what you think love is. And my job might be to abominate that idea. My job might be to supplement that idea. My job might be to introduce you to the idea of love. Whichever role I have played over the course of this series, I hope that by this you are able to recognize love that as a person, a personality, that as complex as love is, it is rather easy. It is complex, but it is easy. The complexity comes in making difficult choices. The ease comes with understanding and accepting love as a person and not just as a feeling. And to know that we're living in a world that is so full and is filled with moral subjectivity. There isn't an objective viewpoint when it comes to morality. Everybody does what they want. It's my body, my choice. It's my life, my choice. It's pro-choice. Everything is just going bonkers. Everybody is blowing up their life into smithereens just so they can satisfy an itch, a desire, just so they can feel an illicit. It's crazy out there. But all of that leads to one thing: God is love, and love is God. If you can see love like that, you have no problem. How do I see love? Talked about every other person, but how do I see love? I see love as God. I've gone through multiple phases and multiple understandings, I will say, of what I think love is. Love is in the gifts given, is in the words of affirmation, is in the acts of service, is in the physical touch, is in the quality time. Brilliant. Love is in the unspoken words. Love is in picking up non-verbal cues. Love is in sacrifice. Love, all of those things points to one, and that one is God. Let's take a look at the love languages. As I wrap up my thoughts, I was talking about quality time. Jesus spent time with his disciples in teaching and discipling them. And how does he spend quality time with us? His spirit is inside us. So when we commune with him, when we sit with him in fellowship, he's there, he's present. He's not absent-minded thinking, say, Chairman, calm down, let me go and answer Kule in Ibadan. He's not absent-minded, he's present with you. If we're talking about physical touch, he's closer than he's literally inside of you. How much more can he get? He's literally inside of you. So that's enough physical touch for me, I guess. He's inside of you. I'm talking about acts of service. He laid down his life. I don't want to skip ahead, but he committed himself to serving. He washed his disciples' feet. He modeled service. Said, what I'm doing, it's not because I'm trying to, this is humility. That no matter how high you are, no matter how exalted, you can lay yourself. You can still serve the least of amongst you. Words of affirmation, come on. Lo, I am with you always. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. If I dress the lilies in beauty and splendor, if I feed the sparrows, how much more you? I mean, come on. It is rife with words of affirmation. You just open Bible, they see words of affirmation. Like, come on. It is, come on. We're talking about gifts giving. He gave the ultimate gift, his life. His life. I hope you leave this series with a redefined sense of love. I pray genuinely that the peace of God and the love of God that knows no bounds, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough to express the love of God. I pray that the love of God rests with you all in your hearts, now until the day we see our King. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining us on this series. I love you all. Thank you for being a part of this community. Go out there and illuminate this dark world, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.